Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Node Investor here. Thanks for being here, guys. I have been away for a few days, haven't posted a video update. I was down for the count. I was out sick, being a wuss, laying in bed with fever for a couple of days. But hey, I'm back to it, feeling much better. And I'm a little bit of a wuss when I get sick, so I was just sitting there. I caught quite a few movies, got to catch up on some TV shows, and I guess there's a plus to that. And I'll admit it. I was checking out the charts, looking at stuff, but not a whole lot. So back to it, and man, oh man, what a week it's been. I got to tell you, other than me being sick a little bit, but just the markets, just you look at the chart of BTC, and it's it's just so unnatural. I mean, I trade other markets and other things, and it just, when I see charts like this, right, it just not normal. Let's just put it that way, right? You see this type of action and the big spike and then the flat and the big spike. And I know there's moves and news behind this and Tether FUD, which is really what kicked off the week. But just, strange times. But I like to say, keep an eye on the big picture, zoom out a little bit. And if you look at the daily chart, and I'm a broken record here, I know, but if you look at the daily chart, it's still very much range bound. Not a lot has changed over the last couple of months, especially the last couple of weeks. You look at this, and, the moves are big within this. I know they are, but big picture, it's still just a small range in the big scheme of things. And so that's what we want to focus on here. But within this, right, there is certainly a lot happening underneath the surface. There are a lot of movements in the alt markets. And we saw some this week. We saw some last week. There's always going to be names that are moving. That's just the nature of it, regardless of what Bitcoin's doing. And so there's still movements in the alts. My overall thesis right now has been that I believe most of the alts have bottomed versus BTC. And we're just kind of waiting on Bitcoin to do something a little bit stronger here. And some of those alts are ready to rock. A lot of them are already moving outside of this here, but some of the big caps are still very much following BTC. Now, that's just my opinion. Obviously, everyone has their own opinion and their own judgment and interpretation of the markets. But looking at Bitcoin, right, it still could go either way. And in fact, it's still leaning bearish a little bit, right? We're sitting right above this key support level, right around that 6,100. And so a break below that, of course, would signal some pretty quick movement to the downside, but just as easily could break higher, cause some FOMO, cause some short covering. Bitcoin shorts, ETH shorts are still relatively high. If you look at the ETH shorts on Bitfinex, right, still at the upper range of where they've been here in recent times. So all around, still a high concentration of shorts, people betting on the bearish side. And so that's still out there, but we've got yet to see what's going to happen next. So thanks for being here. Thanks for the folks that are with the group being here. I'm going to try to keep this relatively short. We'll see how I do. I was on a private stream earlier in the day and was starting to lose my voice right around that hour mark. So hopefully we don't go too far over, but let's see here. Make it or break it in 16 hours. I'll have to take a look and see if there's any basis to that here. But let's take a look at the overall market, and then we will look at some charts. I will certainly look at some of the big movers this week. ZRX, RVN. There's always something moving. There's been some big pumps here lately and a few good setups that I'm liking, to be honest with you. There's still some pretty decent setups. If only Bitcoin could just stop being so spastic all the time here. And if we look at BTC on Binance here, let's go to BTC Tether, and we'll look at the Tether chart because that's been a big driver of why we're seeing this disparity between the two charts here. So I'm going to pull up two charts here real quick. Please bear my scrolling all over the place here, but this is important to note. If you look at the 4-hour chart on both BTC on Binance, BTC on Coinbase here, right? And we had the big move this week. Let me zoom out here a little bit. There we go. This is basically the same time frame right here between these two charts. And with the Tether scare, right, on Binance, on Bitfinex, the USDT-based exchanges, you saw this huge spike, and Bitcoin went basically to 7,700 almost before quickly pulling back in. You can see since then it's just been drifting lower. And on Binance, right, and on Bitfinex, this technically was a little bit of a breakout. It cleared this resistance and was holding above it up until the last day and a half or so. But on Coinbase, on Bitstamp, it was not, right? Had that big wick, went to 6,800, not 7,700, but pulled back right back below this resistance point, right? And it's been drifting a little bit, but not nearly to the extent that you're seeing it drift on Binance and Bitfinex as that tether gap starts to close a little bit. So we're seeing some lag on there, right? So it makes this chart look pretty ugly from that perspective. You're seeing a little bit of lag, some bearishness here on Coinbase, but it's nowhere near the extent. I mean, this actually doesn't look too bad here, trying to form a little bit of a low. On Binance, looking pretty ugly. So just make note of that as we go through some of these charts. The USDT pairs are going to show some lag because of that. So if we look at USD Tether on Kraken, there's a USD exchange. And this was the volatility we saw this week. We saw the big sell-off. We saw the big spike and then kind of just settled out. And it's going back to that 97 range. So it started to drift back up. Ultimately, nobody knew if that was it, right? Is this the big one? Is Tether finally done? But there was a pretty good chance it was going to come back to normal. We've seen this kind of scare in the past. True USD was one of the names that benefited initially from that scare, but it has since drifted back down to not 1.0, but pretty close, right? 1.025. So certainly lost a lot of that premium that it had during the Tether scare. So that was really what kicked off the week. And then since then, just not a whole lot of movement with Bitcoin. We certainly have seen some movement with some of the other names, and we'll take a look at those. But right now, just BTC is still very much range bound and leaning bearish, right, as it starts to drift lower here a little bit. Looking at Ethereum really quick on the USD pair. You can see this one, not quite as bearish. I had that rollover yesterday, but bounced right back. And just now trying to get back above the 10 EMA on the USD pair. The 10 EMA is still below. I have a second EMA on my chart here. This yellow line is the 22 EMA. So it's still below that. It's generally not a good sign when the moving averages are inverted like that, but it is trying to correct. If price came back above this 202 level or so, that would be positive, start to signal maybe some bounce back here on Ethereum versus the USD pair. So real quick, looking at the big picture, going to the coin market cap for the week. This is the $1 billion plus club. So the $1 billion plus market cap names, which now there are. This can't be right. I was going to say, this is certainly not right. Let me see if that filter apparently didn't work. I was going to say there was only like 15 or so last time I checked. It's not working. Okay, so the billion plus club plus club. So just looking at the market cap here and the big cap names, you can see one of the big winners, Stellar. You're going to see a little bit of a theme here. Another big winner here this week. Where is it? Well, we saw ZRX be added here. There it is, 20%. It was added, of course, live exchanges being called there. And the theme was a lot of the Coinbase names. Here's Basic Attention up 30%, right? And so you saw some of the Coinbase 5, as I was calling them, the potentials, the spec names that they're going to be adding, right? Here's Zcash up a little bit today, up 8% on the week. And so some of those have been the bigger leaders. Cardano's probably the laggard in the group. Stellar Lumens, still doing pretty good. So some of the Coinbase names have been the stronger of the bunch this week. Ripple up 7% on the week, still drifting lower here in recent days. And so across the board, very mixed, right? Some up, some down, but generally a relatively flat week, right? We've had some single-digit percenters, not a big week like we've seen in the past, where you got a lot of double-digit gainers. Certainly not the case this week. Bitcoin was up a little bit. So speaking of $1 billion club, real quick, the Mega Millions jackpot has reached $1 billion for tonight's drawing of the lottery. So $2 gets you a chance to win this. Now, I don't play the lottery regularly. No, I'm not. If you do, that's a personal decision. It's fine. I just don't. But hey, at $2 each, I might have to go buy me a ticket for a chance at 300 million, 1 in 300 million chance to win the $1 billion jackpot. Of course, that's the gross value. It's amortized. If you take the cash value, it's about half that. And then if you get taxed on it, it's about another fourth of that. And so, hey, I'm still okay with a couple $100 million. But anyway, the chances of winning are pretty slim. But hey, someone's going to win. So there you have it, $1 billion jackpot. But for most of us who are not going to win. Back to crypto, back to trading. So looking at the Bitcoin dominance, still relatively flat, looking like it may have topped here a little bit. You can see it peaked out in mid-September at 57% here, sitting around 53, 54%, give or take there. So that's really the thing on the BTC dominance, not a lot of change. Of course, the big drivers of the dominance change are really those bigger cap names, Ethereum, Ripple, Bitcoin Cash, some of the ones at the upper end of the list. But I also watch the others category, which has been sitting pretty flat here at around 20%. So you can see it just sitting tight. So I'm keeping a close eye on this because this is everything else, right? This is the stuff that's beyond the top 10, right? This is all those other small names that have been pumping this week. And so if you start to see these move in mass, this is what most crypto traders and investors want, because essentially you have alt season underway when this number really starts to get growing. And so that's what we're watching here, seeing if it's bottomed out, can it start turning the corner. And so right now still sitting around that 18-19%. Let's see if we can get going here. All right, back to the charts here. So what other names are on my radar right now? So let's take a look at a few names here. We'll cycle through some of the bigger cap names. Quantum. And there's a lot of names that were looking very similar here. And so Quantum BTC had that big pump a couple days ago here that was on news of some China stuff, and see the big pullback here. But look at the moving averages on this 4-hour chart have been holding up nicely, still heading north and finding a little bit of a pullback here, finding a little bit of a base. Has it bottomed? Hopefully. I did take a position on this one earlier today, so we'll see how it goes. It's always riskier to take positions when BTC is just drifting lower and looking weak. So I tend to keep positions smaller, if at all. And but just this one was one I was keeping an eye on. And so certainly liking the way it's setting up here. Let's look at ZRX, because ZRX has been one of the leading names here earlier this week. So we had that big run here. Very nice move. But then it finally gave a pretty decent pullback. So going back to that 4-hour chart, and ZRX has, this week has not been the first week it's moved, right? It's been giving you these spikes along the way. Still technically in an uptrend, right? Higher highs and higher lows. And so very nice action all around. If you look at the 4-hour chart, RSI has cooled off enough, so it has room to run again if it wants to. If you look at the daily chart, it's getting up there a little bit extended from the 10 EMA on the daily, but could still get going. I mean, when some of these moves really start to see some action behind them, they can move much further than we anticipate. But looking at this here, I was watching this today because this had a pretty decent move earlier in the week, and it really started to pull back. And look at where it found support, right at those moving averages again. So right at the 22 and the 10, right in between there. So keeping an eye on that. It bounced back. And then here in the last several 4-hour candles, little tiny ascending triangle pattern you can see there. It broke out earlier today. See if we can get some follow through, but still looking pretty good. ZRX, not too shabby there. Let's look at the other one, Basic Attention Token, one of the other Coinbase names. And so this one was looking a little toppy earlier today. It broke out from a very nice consolidation here. I totally missed this one. I wasn't watching the charts a whole lot, but this is what I liked about this setup here, right? One of my favorite type of setups where you see this big push higher, and it gives you kind of this flat top with higher lows starting to set up as volume starts to decline. I mean, everything was there. It was looking very strong. If you go to the 1-hour chart, I mean, just a very nice setup, just primed for a breakout. And volume started to come in before right here and just pushed it higher. And it was looking a little toppy earlier, right? You saw this big reversal candle. This is when Bitcoin started to sell off again. And then right now, it's, you could technically say potential double top if it pulls over right here. Right, if it starts to roll over and breaks below, then it is going to look a little double topish on that 1-hour chart, but still moving higher. Another name that's been strong in potential speculation of it being added to Coinbase. It's up about 35% over the last couple of days. So definitely has been one of the stronger names. Again, another one that I like here. The Coinbase names, I think, are, for me, just kind of good intermediate holds, just because there's a lot of speculation around them. And if they do get listed, you'll get that pop. But you're already seeing some front running to that, right? Look at the volume coming in, just a ton of volume. And I know there's other news with Brave and Chrome and all that. I get all that. But there's one reason why they're being speculated on. Cardano. And at Cardano versus BTC, a little bit of a laggard, right? Just kind of sitting flat here. I did take an entry on this and then just got out of the way with a tiny, let's say tiny gain on that trade this week. But, just kind of a little bit of a laggard here over the last couple of days, not moving as strongly as some of these others. So maybe this is the last one to pump. If you look at Cardano Tether, right, this was, again, trying to get going earlier in the week here. If you zoom in a little bit, had that big pump. This was the Tether pump, if we want to call it that, right? The big scare. And then it kind of pulled back and it settled out. And I was liking this as it started to kind of consolidate right here. This is really what I was watching on Cardano. And as it broke out, took a little position here. Once it hit 1R multiple for me, tightened up the stop, took partial profits, and then it just rolled over. The second half got taken out at break even. So it just was a small net gain. No loss, but still hasn't pumped. So definitely one I'm keeping an eye on here. Stellar Lumens. Stellar has been looking pretty good here as well. Looking at Stellar, there you go. Put in a little bit of a double bottom. Bullish divergence on that RSI, on that second wick. Look at the volume on that second wick, by the way. Just, there was a nice fake out. I mean, those are the best double bottoms, right? Those double bottom fake outs. And this is what you want to see on those type of reversals, right? You see that this most recent low here, price rallied, started rolling over, and then just undercut it and rallied right above. Big bullish engulfing candle on massive volume. Good signal. Now, I don't necessarily have to take that signal right away, but at that point, should be on the radar for some continuation to the upside. And then it just broke out. So looking pretty good. Now, admittedly, I missed this one. Totally missed it. Was even watching it, posted it to the group, said, hey, I like these two right now. I like Cardano and I like Stellar. And guess what? I took Cardano. Totally missed it, man. But hey, you live and you learn. But this one's up nicely, up about 10% since that little bit of a breakout point. So not too shabby. Looks like it still has room to go. It's definitely getting going on this daily chart, right? Zoom out, remember? Zoom out. If you zoom out here a little bit, just a little bit of a pullback and starting to get going again. So I think it still looks good all around. So there's Stellar Lumens. Going to just march down the Coinbase 5 names if you haven't caught on the theme yet, but this is the next one here. So Zcash. Again, Zcash versus BTC, it's still drifting lower right now. It has put in a big low here on Binance. There was a big wick there, middle of September. If we look at Zcash on some of these other exchanges, let's say on ZRX, for example, right, it looks a little bit different, but definitely looking like it's putting in a low, a little bit of a double bottom type of action showing up here on Zcash BTC. We'll go to one more real quick. Zcash BTC here on Polo, right? Similar price action. So a little bit of a double bottom type of action there. Looking pretty good there on the BTC pair. So definitely want to keep an eye on. Again, another one that has that Coinbase potential. Now, Zcash is on a lot more exchanges. So this is the one that I'm least excited about it being added to Coinbase, just because I don't think it will benefit as much as some of the others will benefit by being added. So, but still not too shabby here, looking pretty good. Now, if we zoom in a little bit, has been starting to edge up here a little bit. So definitely looking pretty good, one to keep an eye on in the big picture, starting to show some upward momentum. Now, Zcash USD, let me go to Polo has a USD tether pair. It looks a little bit different here. Let me go to the dollar chart, right? A little bit choppier, but still a little bit of a double bottom type of action. But the downtrend persists, still very much in a downtrend, right? You can see just lower highs along the way. And this is the first sign that it's potentially going to turn the corner here. But ultimately, it's got to make a higher high, right, to start officially changing the trend into an uptrend. So that's something to be keeping an eye on. But all around, I still like it from a speculative Coinbase addition type of thing. So, all right, so those are the Coinbase names. Let me go through the comments, and I'm going to take a quick swig of this tea here. One sec. GVT has definitely been pumping. We'll take a look at that one. I was actually using that as an example earlier in the live stream this morning. ICX, we'll take a look at that. Raven. See here. Okay, cool. We'll definitely look at that. Oh yeah, that's right. Quantum partnered with Amazon. I saw that. That's actually pretty cool. With some of that kind of blockchain on demand stuff. All right, very good. So let's keep going here. Real quick before we lose track of some of the names I want to show you guys, and then we will get back to it. Let me see if I have some on my list. So we talked Quantum. Link was one I mentioned in my live stream earlier this week. It didn't quite hit my targets. I think my target was a bit too high on that. I was looking for something closer to here. Where was that? T1 was 6,300. So it had a small run, not a massive run, had a small run, and was pretty choppy, right? Broke out, kind of pulled back up, just very choppy. At the peak from the breakout point that I was pointing out on the last live stream, you know, not too bad, up about 14%, but starting to drift back here a little bit. Never really hit that upper target that I was looking for, but, you know, considering the week, not too shabby here. What was some of the other names that I was watching? Ethos has been pretty wild here, still kind of moving all over the place. QuantStamp, that's the other one I wanted to show you guys. So QuantStamp was one I was watching here. Let me clear the lines, kind of explain it here a little bit. I'll go to the 4-hour chart. Now, QuantStamp had a pretty big move off the lows, right? Just kind of one of those surprise giant pumps off the lows, up 50% in a day, very big, but has some pros and cons to it, right? So the move was obviously 50% up is good. You got to pay attention, just that size of an impulse move. What I didn't like about it was the volume that was coming in as it was selling off, right? So you see this just big volume on the way down. Generally not a good sign, so just something to watch here. It pulled back pretty quick, pretty deep, but it paused right above the breakout point. So definitely something to keep an eye on here, and looks to be turning the corner here as it starts to move higher. Some volumes coming in here on this most recent move, pulling right back to the 1-hour 10 EMA. So full disclosure, I did take a small position on QuantStamp. Again, considering the markets, I'm just trading a little bit lighter right now and keeping things a little bit tight. So looking at QuantStamp for a potential push higher. I'm not looking for another 50%. I'm just looking for a potential retracement bounce type of action. And got to keep an eye on that, because if it runs up again and makes a smaller high, it's going to look like a big double top. So definitely not looking for like a full move to new highs or any type of thing like that, but definitely one to watch here. It looks like it may have found a low. Another one that did something similar here recently was ELF. So ELF, again, had that big push higher. Again, a lot of volume on the way down. Generally not a good sign, but it's maybe finding a little bit of a low. If you look at the 1-hour chart here, this was Binance downtime, which is the gap. This little resistance level was what I was watching for it to clear, right? So it tried earlier today, kind of a little bit of a wick, trying to get in here. So see if it can clear that resistance near term. Little bit of a rounding base here, still living above that moving average. Moving averages are still stacked. So all in all, not too bad. Big pullback though. So big pullback, a lot of volume, just something to keep an eye on there. A couple others real quick here. We covered BAT, Lumens, Quantum, Ethos. We'll look at ICX. Oh, Neo and Ontology were the other two I wanted to point out. So let's look at ICX real quick. Looking at ICX, it had a breakout. It was a failed breakout. It was looking really good here. I was watching it earlier in the week, just very nice ascending kind of base here. And then look at where it got real flat. Let me move the line down, right? This was really the level to be watching. Started to push higher. And this, and I don't know if it was for everybody, but Binance was down for me earlier this week, and it happened right here. And I was kind of annoyed by that. I was going, hey, I would love to jump on some ICX right here. Looks like it wants to start breaking out. And sure enough, within the hour, it was gone. But it wasn't a huge breakout, so I guess I can't be too upset. It was a big pop to the upside, about 6% pretty quick, and then just drifted lower and rolled over. So not a whole lot. Still setting up, though. If you look at the daily chart, can't complain too much, because the daily chart is still setting up. One I'm definitely keeping an eye on here. You know, trying to form this low, right? Trying to form this big base here at the lows. And it's been working on this for now almost 2 months, right? A month and a half at least. So definitely one I'm watching. If it can start to close above, it tried earlier this week. It's still above the 10 EMA on the daily. Moving averages are starting to head north a little bit. So, this is going to be interesting to see how this one acts over the next couple of days, see how it plays out. If it can start to move higher, then the next point to watch is that 94-cent mark on the USD pair. Looking at ICX from the BTC pair, right, this one is actually looking a lot better from this angle. So if you look at it from here, it's definitely moving higher, still above the moving averages. So that one's looking pretty good from that perspective. And it doesn't look as messy. And, part of that is just Bitcoin on Binance drifting lower, the USD tether kind of pulling a lot of these alt pairs down with it. So NEO BTC first, because a lot of the BTC pairs are really the ones to be watching right now with Binance, with Bitcoin just drifting lower. So looking at NEO, again, another one I was liking earlier in the week, and it just kind of pulled back, but it's still holding support. Maybe has found a little bit of a low. The pullback was on lighter and lighter volume here near the lows. Look at how light the volume got. Starting to turn the corner here a little bit on this 4-hour chart. So that's looking pretty good. See if we can get back above this resistance, but it's going to have some hurdles versus BTC, right? The big one is right here. I mean, there's this big support level that was broken down. You can see that this rally that just happened here this week is right where it paused. And so that's going to just be the battle that it has to overcome if it wants to start moving higher. It's going to be a lot of resistance. And many of these names will be facing similar type of hurdles as they start moving higher, because they've just been in this long downtrend for so long. And you're going to have these resistance levels that were just broken along the way. They're going to have to be overcome. So just something to keep an eye on. We zoom in at these charts and it looks good, but when you start to zoom out, they're just, they're not exactly bullish yet. Let's just put it that way. So just something to keep an eye on here. Looking at ontology. Again, another one that potential double bottom, had that rally, putting in another low, maybe a little bit of an inverse head and shoulder type of action here. And really the level to be watching is, can it clear above this downtrend resistance? Breaking above that, more ideally closing above that on this 4-hour chart would really start to signal a turning of the corner there. So that's what I'm watching. Had that big push last week and then just kind of rolled over. So not a lot of follow through in this market. And that's really been the theme, right? There's just not a lot of follow through in this market. And this is why, right? I mean, you zoom out and you look at the price action for the last month and a half, not a lot of follow through either way, right? It's just been very range bound, got real tight here and then it broke down, didn't really go anywhere, went sideways, went back up. So just that's kind of been the theme, right? So momentum is certainly lacking in this market. We asked for volatility and we got it, but it's still no momentum, right? No follow through to either direction yet. So until then, that's going to be the challenge with a lot of these names is the follow through to the upside. But let's see here. Happy birthday, Node. Is it my birthday? Well, it's not my birthday, but thank you. Thank you for the birthday wishes, my friend. All right. Let me see here. Let me go through the list here. Request. Yep. We'll definitely look at that. GBT. Ethos. We'll look at Ethos because I've been on that. Been watching that one for a while here. All right. So Raven. Raven was the pump of the week. There's always a pump of the week, right? Looking at Raven. Now, somebody in my group was asking about Raven back here, right? They're like, hey, what do you think? Does that have room to go? And I said, it looks like it's breaking out to all-time highs. So once it's in all-time highs, it's anyone's guess. And little did I expect it to run that far. It had already run at that point, right off the lows. It was up 35%. Then it broke out with some good volume and ultimately went up another 50% from that point. So Raven has had quite the week. And, with these type of names that are just running that much, pullback entries are really the best place to look for a place to jump on the trend, right? Just like any type of trend following strategy, that's how you want to do it, right? You don't want to chase it. You want to look for these pauses, these consolidations that give you an opportunity to jump on, right? So you see one there, you see these touchbacks to the moving average, right? Those are great opportunities if you want to jump on some of these moves, right? You don't want to necessarily chase it when you see the big volume spike and you see it pump. You're, oh my God, it's going. I mean, unless you can catch the breakouts, right, when it's happening, you got to wait. I mean, it's just good discipline. And this one has given us, plenty of opportunities to jump on, but ultimately the trend needs to take a break. And you can see this last run popped, and it's just now starting to turn over here a little bit. You're starting to make a series of lower highs on this 1 hour chart. So I'd be keeping an eye on that, right? It looks like it wants to roll over here a little bit. This is really the level to be watching here in the very near term, the support 436, 430, and around there. And with all of these moves that happen just so quickly, it's natural to see a pullback. It's natural to see a retracement, especially when the move has been that strong and that fast. And we've seen this happen with a few names here in recent past, right? Remember last week it was Modea Loyalty Point or whatever it was, right? It was just the massive run. It has finally just paused and decided to break and take a pause here. Before that, what was the other one? QKC was the other one the week before that, right? And it's pausing here a little bit, taking a break. Doesn't mean they always just kind of collapse, but kind of tells you that the run is probably done for now, right? A little bit of a pause. Before that, it was like CMT was another one that was moving, right? Had the big move off the lows and then finally just pause, and it's just kind of going sideways. So they all tend to do that. And so if you're trading, then you want to take profits into some of that strength, because you get these big pullbacks that give up a lot of those profits, right? 25%, that's a lot. So just something to keep in mind. The pump of the week seems to be a theme right about now. And it's been the small cap names lately, right? These smaller cap, easy to move names because there's low volume, small liquidity type of action. So that's Raven. I'd be watching the 4 hour or the daily chart right now. Daily probably doesn't help. It's too young of a chart. So I'd be walking the 4 hour. If it starts to break below that 22, you may probably get out of the way, in my opinion. So what else? GVT. So Genesis Vision. I used this one as a good example earlier in my stream, just because it has been given a series of very nice bases along the way. And guess what? I've missed them. Just totally. I mean, I keep getting these alerts, and this one's been off my radar. So it's, but this one's certainly looking pretty good. I mean, this is a beautiful uptrend, right? You see these big moves, this flat top base, a little bit of ascending type of action, boom, another flat base, letting the moving averages catch up. And when things get real tight and when they look like this, I mean, pay attention, right? Because when you see those type of bases, those type of setups, that's just really nice action. What I don't like about this guy now is it had this big volume reversal right near the top. And so far, prices seem to be stalling right there. So keep an eye on it here. If it starts to roll over and undercut this most recent low, to me, that's going to be signaling that it's probably done for now, right? And it's already had a pretty decent run. I mean, since mid-August, it's up 284%. So, just something to note. But those big volume reversals, for me, are a little bit of a yellow flag, cautionary sign that says, hey, start paying attention, take profits, tighten stop, something along those lines. So that's GVT. But man, oh man, has had quite the move here. So looking pretty good all around. REC was another one you guys wanted to take a look at here. Not on that guy there, but here we go. And so, yeah, that one's still going too. That one's been looking really good. And again, another one, these little pullbacks are nice. And, admittedly, these are tough to buy when Bitcoin is just drifting lower, right? And that's what's been keeping me out of a lot of these trades, is I've been a lot more cautious because of BTC's price action, the imminent drop, right? So you're looking for that type of action. But these pullback entries are really nice entries. You see a rally up, pulls right back to the moving average, and just stair-stepping its way higher, still trending higher. So no complaints there, just still looking pretty good. If you look at the daily chart, really starting to accelerate, getting a little extended from this daily 10 EMA. Price action is starting to get a little excited there. So just be cautious. Again, be cautious about chasing some of these, right? I mean, a normal pullback to the moving average would bring it back 10, 15% easily and would still be just fine. And so just something to keep an eye on. I don't like to chase these, and I don't like to kind of push higher. Real quick, before I forget, because I always forget, if you're not on the alert system, if you're not aware of this, go check it out. There's a little informational video at the homepage, nodeinsiders.com. And this is just a pre-screened alert system. It's automated, and it just gives you various types of moves. But a lot of these names, right, REC, Ethos, Raven, CMT, GVT, all of these names, they show up here, right? So the challenge is always finding the setup. It's always wondering, hey, what, where do I, how do I scan? What do I look for? Do I got to be looking at the charts all the time? You don't, right? Look at GVT. It's just, and it's been on our radar for a long time. It's just been flashing alerts, basic attention. So go check it out. There's also resources that I am adding to regularly, and I'm going to add a lot more here soon. But I've added some video courses that I'm going to sell separately, so you will have access to this separately. But anybody who subscribes to this gets this for free included as part of the subscription. And so I've got a whole risk management course that I just published. I've got a trading psychology one. I'm going to be doing another technical analysis course that's going to be a little bit more in depth, whole video on each indicator that I use, as well as specific strategies. So a whole course on different strategies. But these are all here. And so some of you guys already have access to these training videos. But if you don't, this is one way to get it. So go check that out at nodeinsiders.com. All right, so now that I've given you my spiel, see what else we haven't seen here. So Rec, Nano, Cindy, we'll take a look at that one. Oh, Poet. Poet was another one that showed up on our alerts here this week. So looking at Poet, I was looking at this one as a potential pullback entry here. So I had that big move earlier in the week, starting to pull back. Now I'm keeping an eye on it because this is where I like to watch them as they turn the corner, right? It's pulling right back to those moving averages. If these moving averages start to invert, that's just too deep of a pullback for me. But right now, this one's looking good. The volume patterns are good. RSI has cooled off a little bit. So definitely one I'm watching that may be turning the corner here a little bit. So Poet's looking pretty good. What were some of the other ones that I was watching here? I'm going to go through your guys' list first here. Nano, let's go take a look at Nano. Go to the 4-hour. So you guys asked me about Nano earlier in the week, and I said, keep an eye on this downtrend. It's so far battling that 10 EMA. And like shortly after that, it broke out. And so that's what I was looking at earlier in the week. And I was telling you guys, somebody was asking me about Nano, and I said, hey, until it breaks this pattern, I'd just wait for it to confirm. And look what it did. It bottomed out here, and boom, big volume push right through both moving averages on nice above average volume, well above any recent time frame. And so that's good, right? And that's a nice breakout. Look at, you gave you a secondary entry, pulled right back to that 10 EMA, and then pushed higher. From that point on, it was up about 14% before this most recent pullback. And these pullbacks are pretty swift, man. I mean, look at that, down 14% very quickly. So, which is why I'm an advocate of, in this market condition at least, kind of booking those profits when you can get them that quickly, just kind of taking the small gains and getting out of the way, because you get these give backs very quickly. One day, we'll be back in a market where it's trending, where you want to hold a little bit longer, where swing trading works a little bit better, and you can kind of hodl more, and those are really where you get the big gains. But right now, it's a very tight market, so if you get these moves, I say take them. Let me see what else was on the alerts here. Litecoin BTC. Litecoin BTC was showing some pretty good action earlier today, kind of pushing higher. Let's see, this is a big reversal bar. Did clear some resistance here near term, so we'll see if it can hold this level, but offering a little bit of a pause, secondary entry potentially. I'd be watching this. Maybe it's forming a little bit of a bull flag as these moving averages catch up. So, hey, not too bad. Litecoin. Numier, that one had a big move earlier. Lend, okay. We talked QuantStamp already. We talked ZRX. Wow, DNT. The names from yesteryear. Take a look at DNT. DNT, yeah, that's not a bad little pop off the lows here. Big volume coming in as it's starting to move higher. So look at how flat it was. Big base. Let me zoom out a little bit here. So had that move last week. I remember it popped on the radars, but just totally gave it up. See if it can get sustained this time. DNT here. Look at that daily chart. Just long time flat base here. A lot of volume coming in here in recent days. Oh, let's see here. We talked BAT. Let's take a look at Lend here in a little while. Dragon was pretty choppy earlier. I was looking at that. Poly, that's the other one I was looking at. Polymath. So looking at that guy, had a pretty decent move this week. I don't know what this wick was, just this massive wick. But since then, again, similar pattern, really just kind of started stair-stepping its way higher and gave you these nice little secondary entries at these moving averages, right? So I had that big push, nice little pullback, and then another push, a little bit of a pullback, right? So it's kind of just stair-stepping its way higher. After so many of those, though, you got to pause a little bit, got to digest the move. It gets a little extended on the larger time frame, so I tend to zoom out. If you go to the 4-hour charts, you can see this starting to get a little extended, but now it's pulling back on the 4-hour chart. So this is where I start paying attention to it, keeping an eye on it here, maybe offering up a secondary entry point. So we'll see how that one does. But the volume patterns are good. Can't complain about that. I mean, just these big spikes, just showing signs of accumulation, very little selling on the way down. So not too bad. Now, personally, I'm not a big believer in polymath long term. Like as far as the token goes, I'm sure the company is going to make money with securitization tokens and all that. But polymath, the token, I'm not so sure that. I don't know. I'm just not a big believer. They might have to convince me. But trading wise, hey, why not? Like, we look at the volume here. So that's polymath. Let me see here. I'm going to catch up on some of these comments. Thanks for being here, guys. Getting back on the week, I figured I would drop a live stream instead of posting my weekly update video. I figured this would just be a little bit funner, a little bit more interactive. Since I was out earlier in the week, I was out for the count. What EMA does Node use on the charts besides the 10 EMA? So my two favorites right now, and I've been using 10 EMA for quite some time. I use a 10 and a 22 EMA. And, you know, to be honest, there's no like exact science for any moving average. It could be a 1226. It could be a 920, right? There's various ones. If you look at the exchanges, right, like Binance has some default ones that they use. They're not the 10 and the 22, right? They're different ones. So everybody kind of does their own thing. But use a couple. And the reason I like to use two is because when you see them crossing over, right, when you get the moving average crossover, just kind of shows you that the near-term trend is changing, that sort of thing. I look for these value zones as potential pullback entry points. And so the 1022 just kind of fit well with me with the type of trading that I like to do. I also use a longer term one. I don't show it on my charts all the time, but I will pay attention to the 50 EMA. And you want to see that when you're in an uptrend, you want to see that down below, right? You want to see prices living above the 50. And so I'll look at that. That's really it. I don't use like the 100, the 200. I don't use any of that type of stuff. Just because they're just not as useful for me as far as the type of trading I do, just because it's just too wide of a time frame. But those are the ones I use, in case you were wondering. All right. Oh, let's see here. Sorry about the radio silence here. I am reading through the comments here. Thank you, Jake. Highly recommend the alerts page and video courses. I appreciate that, man. Eternity. Let's go look at that guy. The daily chart. Very nice. Yeah, definitely looking good. Looks like it's about to break out here, too. Look at that volume again. Nice volume. Boom, boom. Those are really the early clues, right? That's a big wick, so maybe you can discount that one here. But good action here. Big volume push. Pulls back. Nice big volume. So we'll see. This one's definitely looking pretty good. It has already cleared some near-term resistance, right? The level that I would have been watching was right here. And that was the signal. Gave you a good secondary entry the next day. And, you know, these are tough sometimes because they break out and they pull right back in and shake you out, and then they get going again. So definitely not easy, but these are nice little breakouts there. So looking pretty good in the big picture, though. The daily definitely is looking like it's turned the corner. All right. What's my problem with Ripple? Why am I ignoring it? No disrespect, my friends. I'm not ignoring it. I think I cover Ripple pretty good. I cover Ripple quite a bit in most of my streams. Did I cover it already? I don't even know if I did already. I covered quite a few of the big ones. Let's see here. Dent. You got shook out twice, Jake. Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. It looks good in the big picture, but that's certainly been a tough trade. Cardano and ETH. Love from India. Oh, man. I appreciate the love from India. But we covered Cardano and ETH at the beginning of the stream. I will circle back to some of the big cap names here. Let me go through some of these other ones real quick here. Any chance of doing Forex videos in the future? You know, I don't know. I do keep an eye on the Forex markets, and I just haven't decided to incorporate a whole lot of other markets in my channel yet. Maybe I will. You know, I do watch a few pairs. I do certainly trade some of this stuff. And, you know, same with stocks. I keep an eye on that. But I just, you know, I generally don't update the channel on the type of stuff that I'm working on over here. And to be honest with you, it's like, it's sporadic, right? When crypto's slow, I'll go trade and do some other stuff, or if I see a really good setup. But most of the time, I'm focused here. So we'll see. If there's enough demand or interest in it, I will certainly consider it. All right, so Ethos was one that we wanted to cover here. Now, Ethos daily, again, looks really good. Near term, it's been a tough trade, but looking really good in the big picture here, and liking the price action all around. Big volume reversal here today, but here's what I was looking at here. Ethos earlier was looking at this on the week, broke out, and then just kind of gave it all back up, right back to support, and then here today, moving higher before seeing that big volume reversal. So again, these are tough ones, right back to resistance, up about 12% before pulling in. See if it can hold that moving average. But big picture, I think it's still looking pretty good. If you look at this daily chart, the 4-hour chart, right, it's just kind of setting up a little bit of an ascending type of base here. Higher lows, flat level here. If it breaks out of that, that's going to look really good. So those are the type of patterns that I like to see. Let me see here. Check gas. Let's go look at gas. That's a chart I rarely look at for whatever reason. I just don't keep an eye on gas. Is it ready to roll? I mean, it's just so sporadic and tends to move with Neo, but lags a little bit. I don't know. Low volume too, so not a whole lot there yet. Let's go look at Neo real quick. Neo BTC. I mean, we covered this one here earlier, but you know, pulled right back to these moving averages, so not too shabby there. The Neo dollar chart is pulling in a little bit more just because of the BTC drift on Binance. It's still not done. It's cramping my style here. Come on, Bitcoin. All right, let's keep going, guys. IOTA. We have not done IOTA. Let's take a look at some of those. IOTA dollar. Still living below these moving averages, still drifting lower. You know, following that big break, just hasn't really recovered. You can see these bounces have been sold right into. So that changes. Not going to do anything with this one here. It's kind of breaking below this support right now. So that's what I'd be watching on IOTA, see if it can recover and then start to turn the corner here. So on the daily chart, IOTA dollar still not looking all that great here. What's going on with Litecoin? I don't know. I saw the 1-hour chart here was moving up here recently, but I haven't done any research on Litecoin or anything beyond that. So Ontology. Looking at Ontology, let me clear some of this here. And it's sitting pretty tight here, but again, these moving averages, notice how they're just starting to drift lower here on the daily chart, going to the 4-hour chart, see if it can turn the corner here. You maybe has found a low, but again, I'd be waiting for it to clear some resistance here near term. You can see these big wicks. That's exactly where they've paused each time. So that'd be the best place for it to close above near term, and that'll really start to turn the corner. Big picture, though, this one tends to move quick when it does, so has those big spikes. We'll see if it can do that. It's been sitting pretty tight here for, what is that, about a week and a half now, but not exactly bullish. Like many of these, right? There's not a ton out there that's exactly bullish. Cindy, let's go look at this guy here. It's been a while since I've looked at the syndicator. Syndicator breaking out of a little bit of a range here today. That's pretty nice. Actually, technically, it broke out yesterday, so looking pretty good there. Not too shabby. Going to the 4-hour charts. See that marching along here, and that was a pretty solid breakout. Look at the volume on that breakout there. So pretty good action. Pulled right back to that moving average. Look like it wants to get going again here. So not too bad there. Looking at the daily charts, your next big test is going to be right here. What is that? That 427 level, give or take, right? That was kind of where it couldn't close above here for 2 days before that big sell-off. So near term, though, looking like it's breaking out of range there. All right, let's do some of the biggies here. Tron, Ripple. Tron, is it done going down? Let me clear this. This is Tron BTC. They have a partnership. Why don't they rockets? They have a partnership. So Tron Daily. I mean, like many of these, right? I think it's found a low, but we'll see. It's not a lot of momentum. It has these big pushes, and it just kind of gives it all up. So going to the 4-hour charts, sitting pretty tight. It was looking good, and it just rolled over, just sitting tight right now. So I would just wait for this thing to break out one way or the other here. A little bit of a symmetrical pattern type of form in action here versus BTC versus USD. All right, this is what I was liking. It was looking good earlier this week when it popped and then it pulled back right to these moving averages. Looked like it wanted to get going and then just fizzled out along with BTC and some of these others. XRP, is XRP done? Ripple. Let me go to the daily chart here. I'm not so sure it's done yet. I mean, the trend is clearly shifted, right? You got this high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high. Is it going to make a lower low? Maybe. I mean, this was kind of the turn in the corner here, so we'll see. But on the 4-hour chart, this was looking pretty decent earlier in the week, and just here the last couple of days rolled over. So not too bad, I guess. I mean, the big picture is not my favorite chart just because it's still kind of consolidating from this big move, but there's a good chance that maybe that was the low. Maybe. How's it look on the BTC pair? It's not bad, I guess, right? It's kind of just moving up, pulling back, moving up, so not too shabby. All right. Long-term holder versus elite trader. Who's the best? Well, it depends on what year you're talking about. In 2017, HODL game was great. 2018, traders won. Why not do a little bit of both? ELF, we looked at ELF. Quantum. We looked at Quantum at the beginning. Land. Let's look at land here. That was on the alerts earlier. Still stepping its way nicely here. Maybe the next pump of the week. Yeah, land's looking pretty good here. So had these pullbacks right to these moving averages, so not too bad there. Again, it's starting to lose a little bit of momentum though, right? On these latest, when it does a few of these, it needs to pause a little bit, right? So you can see the momentum is starting to wane here a little bit. Big wick, a lot of volume on this most recent peak. So maybe it's going to consolidate. If you go to the 4-hour chart, it is a little extended from this moving average. So definitely due for consolidation, but once that happens, we'll see how it does. It looks pretty good from that perspective. So consolidation would be normal here. If we can pull back on that 4-hour chart, a little bit more of a pushback here. But land, certainly clearing some resistance, looking pretty good from that perspective. The daily chart, I mean, that's looking strong. Can't complain. Nice move off the lows there. All right, we're going to do a few more, guys, and then we will wrap it up because I can feel my voice going again. It's my second stream for the day, by the way. So first one was like an hour and a half long. Shouldn't be doing this. It's against my doctor's wishes. Just kidding. Going through the comments here in 1 sec. We did Tron, we did Quantum, we did Lend. WAN chain. Let's see, WAN chain. Yeah, it's still holding up on the daily. It's been a little choppy here in the last couple of days, last couple of weeks or so, but technically still holding up here on this daily. So definitely an interesting looking chart. See if we can finally break out and get some movement to go. And it's tried a few times here, but look at this big volume. Just got shot right back in. So WAN chain. OMG. OMG was moving, wasn't it, earlier? OMG, yeah. Cleared that little resistance here and still moving. See if it can push through here. You don't want to see these double top here. If it rolls over, then it starts looking like a little bit of a double top, but definitely getting a little bit of momentum here. So yeah, GVT we looked at, real interesting, a little bit long in the tooth now, showing some climactic action, volume reversals, so keep an eye on that, but has had quite the run. Definitely, we checked that out, and it was one I was looking at earlier with the group as well. Monero. Metal. Let me see here. Pulled it up on Polo. How about that daily chart? I don't like to see these rounded type of rollovers here. So that's what I'd be watching near term, right? Is can it get back above this level? Just kind of drifting lower. These moving averages are turning the corner. The one positive, I guess, would be, you're starting to see a little bit of buying volume coming in here. But I just don't like to see these big kind of rollover type of action. So I want to see this guy turn north here, get above that moving average. Let me see. We covered ICX and Neo. Bitcoin Cash. Let's look at the Bitcoin Cash. Now, near term, I was watching this, and it was pushing higher on this 4-hour chart, but bounced right into that moving average and starting to roll over here a little bit. So, not exactly a strong-looking chart. I mean, just broke down hard, and it's just been drifting lower here versus Bitcoin. So Bitcoin's dropping, and this one's underperforming Bitcoin. Not exactly a strong-looking chart here, and just kind of gave up that whole move following this. This was excitement around to the IPO and some of this other stuff, and just really just gave it all up. Just kind of fizzled out. EOS. We didn't cover EOS. How did I miss EOS? So looking at EOS here, it's pulled right back to this. I don't even want to call it a breakout point because it technically wasn't a breakout. I mean, it was just clearing this resistance, but you can see where it's pulled right back here and see if it can hold above that point there. That's really the level I'm watching. Keep an eye on. I'd like to see it bounce off of that. Ideally, it shouldn't have come back that far. I mean, a lot of these charts were looking really good here earlier in the week. They were kind of just sitting tights. You wanted to see them push higher from there. They didn't. They just started to drift lower along with Bitcoin. So now you're seeing if this most recent low can hold up. So that's EOS. Now EOS BTC. It's kind of sitting flat, just holding par with Bitcoin here over the last couple of days. Stratus, huh? Stratus. top there. So let me go to the daily chart. I mean, there's not a whole lot here. Not yet. You get this big outside bar, but moving averages, again, they're just kind of still drifting lower here. So not a lot of momentum on this guy yet. All right. Digibyte, I don't think it's broken out of that range. I think we covered this in the last stream, and it may still be in range. It still is, right? So it's kind of just been bouncing between this here and hitting the low end of the range. So right now, that's really the level to keep an eye on, see if it can hold this support again. But it's just kind of range bound right now. It's pretty tight here. I mean, it's not exactly bullish. It's kind of dropped off this, this ledge here, but we'll see if we can break out. This is a low volume name too. I mean, go to the 1 hour charts. Look at that. A lower volume name. So, but sitting tight, just waiting for potential breakout there on that guy. Ethereum Classic. Where is it on Binance? Here we go. Ethereum Classic. After that Coinbase listing, it was pretty much the excitement was over. It was over. The Coinbase, okay, we're done. So yeah, it definitely has not been outperforming in any way. Is it finding a low? I mean, maybe. I mean, the RSI here is pretty low. It's drifting higher, but this looks just like a little bit of a descending wedge, and these tend to break down here, right? What it's done is this moving average is starting to squeeze. Support sitting tight. If it breaks below, just not positive. I guess the only positive here is it's a little bit oversold, but it's not exactly bullish, just drifting lower here. Let me look at it from the USD pair. I imagine it's going to look much stronger. Yeah, not a whole lot there. Better choices out there right now, in my opinion. AMB, wonder if it's topped already. AMB. I wouldn't necessarily say so. I mean, it certainly could run and have room to go. I mean, the RSI, it's sub 70 still, barely, but it's still sub 70 on the daily charts. If you go to the shorter term time frames, let me see the 4 hour charts. I mean, it's testing right now, and that's really the key, right? It found this most recent high, last week, pulled back, tried to get again. Here we go, retesting again. This is what I would like to see on a chart like this, right? Is it pulled back here constructively, a little bit of a bull flag type of action, right? Let these moving averages flatten out a little bit. Then that would set up a nice little handle here, and then kind of give it some more legs for it to push higher. But if it's a sharp decline and just starts to break down, that's not going to look good. So those are the two ways I'd be looking for this guy to go here. All right, I'm going to do 3 more, and we will call it a day. We'll go through very quickly on some of the bigger cap names that we reviewed at the start for those that missed it here. But let's see here. So ADX, look at this guy in a long time. ADX, maybe it's breaking out. Yeah, I had this big volume day, what, about 5 days ago here, 6 days ago, and trying to follow through. You can see it's been drifting higher here off the lows, so maybe good volume coming in here. But these are such small cap names. I mean, look at how they move up and they move right back down. Those are tough, man. Those small ones just almost a little too volatile for me. Let me see here. We looked at ontology. I'm going to try to catch a couple of that we haven't seen, and then I'll cycle back through some of the bigger names here. Oh yeah, Wabi. Wabi was the big mover last week, and remember Wabi and Mod. And I'm going to keep an eye on these two this weekend just because they've kind of had a little consolidation here. Go to the daily chart real quick here. And I was sharing this one with the group earlier, but look at Wabi. Right, that big volume push, and I know that was on rumors, partnerships, buyouts, blah, blah, blah. But just looking at the charts, right, it's kind of pulling back. On this daily, it's been a pullback right to that 10 EMA on the daily. And so I'm going to start paying attention to it here if it starts to flatten out, see if we can turn the corner here on this. The volume on this pullback has been pretty light, so that's good. That's what you want to see following a big push like that. And, that was a pretty big move off the lows. I mean, just, 2 days it was up 100%, so just normal to see a pause after something like that. But I'm going to be keeping an eye on it here in the coming days. Same with Mod. Mod had a similar run right up to resistance, pulling right back, but that pullback has been right to that 10 EMA and also back to this little bit of a support zone here. So doesn't mean they always start going again, but that's where you want to look at them as potential secondary entries. Let me see. We covered BQX, and we did not cover VeChain. So we will look at VET. Why is everyone saying happy birthday? That's hilarious. Am I missing something? I mean, hey, I'm all for a party anytime. You guys want to throw me a party? Let's do it. It's not my birthday, but thank you. I really appreciate the well wishes. I love you guys. All right, I'm going to go to VeChain dollar. That seems to be getting the most volume here these days, not the BTC pair, but breaking down. Is it my channel's birthday? I don't think so. My channel's birthday is in the springtime, so I don't know. Happy 18th? No. I turned 18 last year, guys. Come on now. 19. All right. Enough with the birthday wishes. It's the birth of today's live stream. Yeah, I'm not sure about VeChain here. Just not looking like it wants to join the party. We're still drifting lower here. A little below these moving averages. All right. Oh, I love you guys. All right, let's cycle through some of these big cap names, and then we will wrap it up because I'm going to call it a day. I still got to relax and recover a little bit and see what else we do here for the weekend. But going back to BTC here, again, important to note the disparity that still exists between two, the bigger exchanges here. So the USD versus USD tether pairs. Look at something like Coinbase. And while it's not exactly bullish, it's not looking as bad as it is on, say, Binance and Bitfinex, right? So you had the big push, never broke out above resistance here during the big push on the tether scare, and since then just started to drift lower here. But you look at it on Binance, right? It did clear resistance, but just breaking down here as some of that gap starts to close. And so you're seeing this big drift right now, and it's kind of putting a lot of pressure on some of these other alts, things like Quantum and QuantStamp and some of these other names that we were looking at. So really want to see this guy bottom out and turn the corner here on the 1 hour. It is starting to hit these little bit of oversold levels, certainly on the shorter term time frames it was earlier today, but daily and 4 hour have room to run to the downside if it wants to. So that's really going to be the thing to be watching here. ETH is looking a little bit better here from that perspective, but not exactly bullish either. Still living below the 10 EMA on the daily, still living below the 10 and below the 22. So not bullish, right? And this 10 EMA on the daily never got above. I mean, it's literally been in bear mode since July, right? Just look at this blue line, living below. Had a few chances here where it was like really close, could have broke out, and was looking really good here, and just broke lower, right? So has not been able to confirm to the upside yet. Beyond that, some of the names that we mentioned were on deck that I was keeping an eye on. Wabi, Mod were some of those other ones. QuantStamp, potential pullback here. Looks like it wants to get going again. Kind of turning the corner there. I was looking at Quantum for a pullback here as well. Quantum dollar. See if it can get going again. BTC is kind of putting the pressure on a lot of these names I think they want to run. ZRX was breaking out. A lot of the Coinbase names were just looking pretty good here. And so ZRX broke out earlier today. And so that's kind of been the theme there. But very mixed market across the board. Not a huge week. There certainly has been some good moves in some of these names. So, Basic Attention, Stellar. But a lot of these other ones, just single digits for the last 7 days. Some chop, some up, some down. There's the small caps have really been some of the bigger movers, right? You saw names like Raven and some of those, REC, Ethos. Some of those have been moving. But other than that, Komodo, 27%. Other than that, not a lot of big movers. I covered Link. It was a setup I was watching earlier in the week. I shared that in the first stream this week. had a pretty decent move, not a huge move. I think it was up 14% from the breakout points. But other than that, just not a lot going on just yet. Waiting on BTC to settle out of here a little bit. BTC dominance just kind of sitting flat, sitting tight here around that 54% or so. But this is what I'm watching, this others category. I really want to see this guy start moving higher because that's going to really signify a lot of the alts getting going again. So we will see. It's hard to believe that we are already halfway through the month of October 2018. This year has been a rough year for a lot of the crypto nation, no doubt. It's been a tough year, a bearish year following last year's very strong rally. And so the bear market continues, but is it over? That's the million-dollar question everybody wants to know. Everybody's wondering. It's split across the board. Probably the bears have a little bit more on their camp right now, and understandably so. But I think the alts, a lot of them are finding lows, have put in some bottoms. And so that's really where I'm kind of leaning towards now, right? Is some of these alts that are just down significantly, or were down, 70, 80, 90% versus BTC. And so I'm thinking some of these are going to start running again. And if Bitcoin can get going, we can see some momentum come back into this market, right? That's been the thing, the lack of momentum. It's been choppy. It's been tight. There's been some volatility, but just no follow through in any direction here for the recent past. So be nice to see a little bit of a trend again, even if it's only for a couple of weeks, right? Those are some nice trends. So we'll see, but it's hard to believe it's October. A couple of weeks, we will be in November, and soon we'll be looking at 2019. So appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate you guys being with me as always. And thank you for the happy birthday well wishes. So hope everyone has a good rest of your day, good weekend, wherever you may be. Until next time, take care, everyone.